Hey friends, what's up? Today we're going to learn about one of the most underrated and powerful features of Svelte that sets it apart from other JavaScript frameworks, which are Svelte Actions. And basically Svelte Actions are just regular JavaScript functions that are called when an element is created, so they give you a reference to the element and then you can do whatever you want using regular JavaScript. So we're going to look at a bunch of examples from this tooltip, so we hover over it, we're using this tooltip library, so we can update it, we can say banana, and then we're also going to learn how we can update actions in Svelte. Then you're going to look at the model, and you probably had to do this a bunch of times, so you need to know when you click outside of this model so you can close it. Well, we're going to learn how we can dispatch custom events, so when we click outside, boom, easy. And then we're going to look at motion, so we're going to use this library motion1, so we're going to make this animation, we're going to see how we can get a reference to it, so we can do whatever we want, and lastly we're going to talk about progressive enhancement with Svelte Actions, so that's going to be really awesome. Alright, so I hope you're excited, but before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe, and you can support me by becoming a patron. Alright friends, so as always, you can find the link to the blog post in the description so you can play with the example yourself or read the post if you want. Alright, so here I have a simple component, I have the show and content state, so basically I just have here a label which is going to be a toggle checkbox so I can show you the life cycle of the Svelte action, so when the element gets created and destroyed. Here we added Brazil, so we can say if show, we can say input bind value to content, so this is just going to be our input, and this is just a normal regular div. Alright, so how do we do this, right? Well, first you create a regular function, and this can be anything, so you can import this from anything, and this is what makes it really great and powerful. So we can name it greet, but you can name it whatever you want, like banana, right? And you're usually going to see this example is going to get called node, but I'm usually not a fan of this naming convention. You can name it L, element, whatever you want, right? So if you're using TypeScript, you can also give it a type if you want, but if you're not using TypeScript, just ignore it. Alright, so what happens? So the component gets mounted, so we can see that by saying console log hi. And now we can also optionally return an update and destroy method. So here we have this destroy method, and then we're also going to console log hi. And basically that's it. Okay, so how do we use this action? Well, we can use the use directive in Svelte. So here is something that's specific to Svelte, right? So we just say use colon the name of the action. Treat like this. So let me save this. Let's go to this example here. Here we have this action. So I'm going to open the developer tools. And when the element is created, we should see hi. As you can see, here is hi. So everything works as expected, right? Here we have our input, nothing important. So let's see what happens when the element gets unmounted or removed. So let me just toggle it again, and now it says bye, and now you can toggle this however much you want. And basically this is the basics of Svelte Actions. And now of course this means that you can do anything you want. Let's say for example that you want to use the web animations API. Easy peasy. We can reference the element itself, right? And we can say animate, and now it wants us to pass some keyframes. So here we can say opacity 0, and then we can say opacity 1. So this is just the native animation API in the browser. Cool, now we can also pass it some options. We can say duration, let's make it obvious. So we can say 2 seconds, and then fill forward so it ends at the last frame. Otherwise it's going to get reset. So this is just the same thing as CSS keyframes. This is basically the API for that. Alright, cool. So let's save it and let's see it. So now when we do that, it should fade in. You should see it works as expected. How beautiful is this, friend, right? Alright, but this is boring. Maybe we want to pass something here so it reflects and updates the value or whatever you have inside. So how can you do that? Well, you can pass options to the Svelte action. So here you can have an object or whatever, you can destructure the values here, but I'm just going to pass a single value content, which is going to be of type string and nothing special. So now where we have return here, we just need to return an update function. And then we also give it what is going to update. So this is going to rerun. We also need to give it a type again. And basically that's it. So now we can say console log, and I'm just going to do it inside of an object so we can see that it comes from content. How awesome is that? So now this content is already bound to the value of this input, right? So basically here is a warning because it says here content. So it's like, okay, this value has to be passed, but you can make it optional, right? It's not important. So basically you can pass any parameters you want here. So we can just say content, and that's basically it. So let me just go to the example here. I'm going to clear everything so we see what's going on. And now inside of here, when we start typing something like hi, you're going to see the value of content inside gets updated. So how awesome is this? So you can type banana or whatever else you want. So now inside of your action here, when you have this, you can reassign it to whatever else you have inside. Maybe you want to change some configuration and etc. And basically that's how simple this is. But let's look at another awesome thing you can do with Svelte Actions. You can dispatch custom events very easily. So to dispatch custom events, this is just regular JavaScript, right? So we can go to MDN custom event. And now this should open again. So let's go to the custom event constructor. If I zoom in, you should see here they even have an example. So you can create a custom event, you can name it banana, whatever you want, right? And here to show you, you add an event listener, which you're going to do in Svelte, and then you just dispatch the event. How easy peasy is that? But I'm also going to show you something that you might not expect. So let's go here, somewhere at the top. So how do we create a custom event? Well, we can put it inside of a variable. Let's name it greet event. And now we can say new custom event. Simple like that. We can give it a name. I'm going to name it greet. And now you can also pass whatever else you want. So this can be some data, this can be a function, but I'm just going to pass this detail. I'm going to say hi. And then to dispatch it on the element itself, you can use the dispatch event API. And now we can say greet event. And that's basically it. So let's save this. And now we can use the event listener. So you might go somewhere like here. So for example, here we're going to say on. So we're listening to a custom event. This time I'm also with this. We can say greet. So now inside of here, you can pass it anything. I'm going to pass it a callback. So we can say console log hi. And this is complaining because we don't have types, but later we're going to learn how we can even type these things. For right now, this isn't important. So when we go here to our example, you might be thinking, okay, this should work, right? So let me just refresh for good measure so there are no tricks, right? And here the element is mounted, but we only get the hi from the beginning of here. So let me just comment this out. And again, so no tricks. You can see nothing logs out. And that is really curious, right? And the answer why this happens is really simple. We are registering this event after we create this, right? After we use our Svelte action. So for example, the next update happens on the next tick in the browser or repaint. So for example, you can do something like this. You can say request animation frame, and basically this just accepts a callback, or you can use a set timeout with 0. So basically this is going to happen. It's going to tell to the browser, hey, do this work on the next repaint in the browser. As you can see, now when we go to our example, let's toggle it. Now it logs out hi. But this is really inconvenient, right? So to fix it, I'm just going to remove this. Let's just move this event listener before we use the Svelte action. That's basically the fix. That's how simple that is. So maybe a general rule of thumb when you're using actions, just place them at the bottom as the attributes just to be safe, right? Maybe. So we can do this, and now we can see when you go to example again, let's refresh. And how beautiful is this? Now it logs. So let's see how we can also get the details. So maybe instead of this callback, we can say handle greet. So now you have this special function handle greet. So now this accepts a type of event, right? And this is of type custom event if you need to type it. Awesome. So now we can say console log. And now let's see what the event is, right? So let's just say toggle. Okay, cool. So let's see. Event. It's really nothing intimidating, right? Oh, so you can see something familiar for your detail. Okay, nice. So we can go here and we can say event detail. Boom. Let's just refresh everything so we get a clean slate. And now it says hi. How beautiful is this, friends? So Svelte actions are great for anything from using JavaScript libraries in Svelte to Sveltifying existing JavaScript libraries. And I also want to emphasize that Svelte actions only work with JavaScript enabled, so they don't run on the server. So let's go over some more practical examples so you understand how to use Svelte actions. Alright friends, so let's look at this tooltip example. So here we're going to use this library Tippy, which is really simple tooltip system. So we can go to Tippy, and of course, as always, when you start out with these libraries, just go and read their guide. So what you have to include, getting started, they tell you everything, how to install it, what CSS you need to include, then how to create Tippy. So here is the usage. So you just create this Tippy thing and you just pass it the element and whatever options you want. And as you can see, I just have this simple example. I have this input which binds the value of this input content, so the tooltip, and then we're going to create a Svelte action. And I also want to emphasize you don't really need to create a Svelte action. Maybe you want to create a component tooltip and use that. That is perfectly fine. You can pass whatever props you want here. That's perfectly fine. But you can see Svelte actions are way simpler for this when you need to reach into the DOM, right? All right, so let's see how we can do that. So let's create another action. I'm going to name it function tooltip. Again, it's going to accept an element, so we can say HTML element, and then we're going to have options which we're going to type in a second. Alright, so let's create a tooltip. So we can just say const tooltip, and now we can say Tippy, so we can import it from here. We can say Tippy from Tippy.js. I already have it installed. And now we can just use TypeScript. We don't even need a docs. Tippy wants what targets. Okay, let's pass it the element. What does it want then? It wants options. Okay, this is why TypeScript is amazing. Okay, alright, so now let's return the cleanup. So again, when you're reading these docs, let's go to the tip, is just get familiar with the methods, right? This might be more advanced if you're not that confident in your JavaScript. But when you go to their methods, here it is somewhere. So, okay, you already know how to make TP and etc. But always be conscious that you need to also do some cleanup. So if you just read through these methods, right, you can see this is some method destroy to permanently destroy and clean up this instance. All right, so let's be responsible. So we can go back. We have a reference to tooltip and we can just invoke destroy. That's basically it. But if you're using TypeScript, you already know every possible method. And this way TypeScript is awesome, right? You didn't need the docs to tell you this. And you can just do this. Boom. All right, so now let's use our Svelte action. This can be anything, doesn't need to be a button. This can be a H1. So we can say use tooltip, and we can also pass it an option. So we're using an object this time. So we're going to just pass it an object, and here we're going to have some options, but you're going to see it's not going to work or update it is. But let's save everything and let's go to our example. So right now it should work. It's going to be tooltip, right? So if I refresh it just for good measure, it says tooltip, because that's the default value we set here. So content tooltip, if I remove this content, say nothing, then nothing is going to be here, right? So when I hover it over, nothing. And again, if I bring tooltip back, then it's going to work. All right, so how can we update this value? Well, let's just use our update method. We can say update. What we want to update? Options. That's basically it. So now we're going to do this. And now set props. So it's probably set props. You can see set props. Okay, so you're looking for, okay, how do I update this after I initialize tooltip or TP, whatever it is, right? You can update any prop after the instance has been created. And then it tells you instance, set props, blah, blah, blah. Tells you everything, right? All right, cool. So now we say tooltip. Again, we can say set props. And now just pass the options you passed already. Cool, so let's save everything. Let's see if it works. We go to our example. Here's tooltip. Everything works fine. Let's say banana. How beautiful is this? Now everything works as expected. As you can see, we are missing some styles, right? So again, we can just import the CSS from here. I'm just going to say import. Again, what is the name of our package? TP. So now we can say slash, probably in dist. Let's see what is here. TP CSS. Boom. That's how simple that is, friends. So you can see the styles looked off, but now it's styled properly. So now you can say banana and things look great. Alright, so lastly, let's type this. Alright, so how do you figure the type of something like this? And basically, this isn't even Svelte related. Maybe for whatever reason you want to move these options outside. So maybe you want to have these options right here, but now you don't have any auto-completion. So how can you figure out this type, right? And basically, you already have the type information. If you hover over TP, okay, let's look. It says optional props, right? I hate this hover. Let me just leave it here. Optional props. Okay, so we're going to look for optional props. And we already see this is some partial props thing, right? But you can press Control or Alt depending on your computer. Maybe you're using Solaris, I don't know. So you can go to TP and let's just click on this thing so we get the entire file. So this is the type definitions. So what did we say we are looking for? Optional props, right? So let's just find it. Optional props, and we're already here, right? As you can see here, this is probably a function overload or something that doesn't matter. So you can see maybe here is this partial. We're not really interested in this, but we're really interested in props. So if you go to these T props, again, you press Alt and then it leads you to this. You can see props. And then you might look, for example, for partial in this project. And you can find partial anywhere. And basically partial is just a TypeScript utility, but maybe you don't know about TypeScript utility. This is fine. And you might be thinking to yourself, okay, so this is probably something global, right? And then you just go to your search engine of choice and you can just say TypeScript partial or whatever. And then it's going to lead you to the documentation. So as you can see, utility types. Okay. So now let's find where is partial. So now this is how you learn. Okay, what is partial type? Constructs a type with all properties of type set to optional. Okay, now you learned that partial, when you pass it a type, it makes all of the options optional, right? And boom, that's how you do it, right? So we can go here. We already know the type. Easy peasy, friends. Of course, it's not easy peasy if this is the first time you're doing, but once you learn it down, you know it forever, right, friends? So we can go here. We can say type options. Now we can use partial, and let's rely on auto import. We can say props, and thank God the auto import works. But as you can see, you can do it yourself like this. Say type props, and now let's just do it like this. So we can also set this to be optional, I think, or let's just pass it the options. And then we can also type it here. Boom. And now you get great auto completion. So for example, if I press Control Spacebar, boom, now you know everything you can pass here, right? Again, you have documentation in your editor thanks to TypeScript. How beautiful is this? And especially if you're doing this for someone else and you want to publish this library. All right, so that's it for this example. All right, friends, so let's look at this model example. So here I have this simple model. I just open it and now we're stuck. We can't do anything. I mean, you can add a button here, right? Close it. But what if the user just wants to click outside and close it? And this is just a simple component. I just have some simple state. I have this open state here, which is set to false by default. I just have these two functions, open model and close model. And basically I'm just using here this transition scale. So this is really simple to do in Svelte. Just refresh so you can see it again. Isn't that nice? And basically I just have this blurred background and nothing special, just some simple styles. And if you're going to actually use a model, I actually recommend you use the dialog from MDN, but this is just an example and you're always going to need to know when you click outside of something for other examples. But yeah, basically this is a dialog and this makes it really easy so you don't have to do all of these shenanigans. And if you look at the browser support for the dialog, everything is green. How beautiful is that? But yeah, let's just go on to the example. And again, you don't need to be a JavaScript or Svelte wizard, right? Just look up how to do something like this in JavaScript and then you can just port the code over to SvelteKit because it's just JavaScript, right? And basically, let's just see how simple this is. So basically, we're just going to create a function that detects if you clicked outside an element. And how can we do that? Well, let's just create a function. We're going to name it click outside, how original, right? Then we can pass it an element. We can say HTML element or whatever. And now we're going to create a function handle click. We're going to give it an event, which is going to be a mouse event, right? And then we're also going to register this. So we can say document add event listener is going to be click. And we're going to pass it handle click. And as always, we need to clean up after ourselves. So we can say destroy. And now we can take this line of code. You can say instead of add event listener, remove event listener. That's basically it. So now we can work on the logic. And now we can just go here and go to create a target element variable. And this is going to correspond to the event target. So whatever you clicked on, right? And I'm going to give it a type. So TypeScript doesn't complain. It's HTML element, of course. And here is the simple part. So this is just a couple of lines of code. So you can say if the element exists, right? And the element doesn't contain the target element. And that's basically it. And now we can dispatch a custom event, which you already learned how to do. So we can say const click outside event, new custom event, and we can name it outside, or you can be more creative if you want. And again, we can just say dispatch event. And we're going to dispatch the click outside event, and easy peasy, friends. And maybe I should learn how to type. All right, so as you see, like this can be like 2 lines of code, right? So how do we use it? Well, we go to the model itself, right? And we can use the action. So we can say use click outside. That's basically it. And now let's for good measure, again, put the event listener before it, even though you don't have to. We can say on outside. Great. And now you can do anything. So now we can console log outside, but you're going to see we have a problem. And let me just click on the button and you're going to see if you open the console. So now we can click outside. So now instead of doing this, we can close the model since we have this function. So here's the function at the top. Let me see, close model. Yeah, that's it. So now we can just use this. Again, we dispatch a custom event. So now let's save this and let's refresh everything for good measure. So now when I click on this, nothing happens. And why is that? Well, basically this is because how events propagate. And to fix this problem, so here in document and event listener click. So basically when we click on the document, it's not going to this button, right? So how can we fix this? Well, if we go to MDN add event listener, we can see some options here. And again, it shows you the options here. So here is the type, the listener itself. So you can pass options or you can use capture. And what is capture? Here is a confusing example, but here is a better one. Let's see. I think I had this right here. Yeah, here's bubbling and capturing. So basically what we want, let me just find this example. So here is the capture phase. So if you set the capture phase to true, so now when we click on the document, it's going to propagate to the button itself. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And then you also have this bubbling phase that works in reverse. And this is really a great article if you want to learn more about how capturing and bubbling works. And basically all of this complicated nonsense for just one thing you have to do. You just have to set this to true. So you set propagation to true, and then you go here, and then you also say it for the cleanup. So now let's see if we go to our example. Let's just refresh for good measure. So now our model is going to open. How beautiful is this? So let's see if everything works. Let's see if we click outside. Ah, nice. So let me just close this. Again, let's open and close. All right, that's basically it. So now let's learn actually how to type an action. So if you're not curious about TypeScript, you can just ignore this part. But if you go, for example, to the Svelte docs, so you don't think that I'm making these things up. Let's see, action, Svelte action. You can go here, and they tell you how to type it, right? So here they have this entire section, which is a bit confusing to be honest, but I'm going to show you how simple that is actually. So just so you know that I'm not making these things up, it's all documented here, so you don't have to go spelunking in the Svelte code or etc. They literally tell you how to do this. So how do you do this? Well, we need to type this function first, and typing a function like this in TypeScript is really hard, so you need to use an arrow function. So first I'm going to turn this into an arrow function. I'm going to say const, click outside, and you can just quickly turn it into an arrow function. And now you're going to realize why this is. And this is because this is the only way that we can type a variable like this. So we can give it a type. So now we can import action, which is going to be a generic. So if we scroll up, you just see action. Type action from sveltekit. I think this is from Svelte Action actually. But yeah, if it works, then it's fine. Svelte Action, like this. And that's basically it. So now you pass things to this generic. So first you pass it, what is this type of element? And again, we have HTML element, right? And now since we don't have any options or prop, we can just say any. And now for the events, since you see this is complaining about this because it's like, what is this outside? I have no idea. You get this super confusing message. It's yeah, TypeScript is sometimes fun, right? But once you do it once and learn it, then it's like whatever, okay? And then we're going to pass this type. We're going to create attributes, and that's basically it. So now we can remove even this from here, and it's complaining attributes doesn't exist. Yes, I know, I'm very... Alright, so let's just find a cozy spot here, and I'm going to create an interface, or you can create a type, whatever, it's not important. I just name it attributes, and this is what the docs tell you. So now we're just going to give it a type. It's on outside, which is optional, so I'm going to say question mark. And then it's a function which returns nothing. So we say void, but it has some argument, right? Which is the event, and it's of type custom event. And to also make this more readable, we can take this code and we can create a type alias out of it. So let me just cut it. I'm going to go here, and I'm going to say type, click outside action. And this is just personal preference. You don't have to do this, but I just want to show you you can do this. So this makes things instantly more readable to me. So let me just save everything, and that's basically it. So let's see, we created this, okay, we pass it, and now you see we have this thing here. So now it knows. Look at me, embarrass myself. Okay, so now you have out, inside. Okay, awesome. So now you have even auto completion for this. And now let's see if everything still works, right? No tricks, let's refresh. Okay, so now this model what's up pops up, and now we can close it. And that's basically it, friends. This is how you type Svelte Actions. Alright friends, so now that that is done, let's look at this motion example. So what I want to do here, I want to make an element out of every letter, and then I want to animate it. And we can use this whatever animation library you want, but I'm going to use motion 1. So here in this humble component, there is like really nothing but the motion import. So what I love to do before I write any action, I just think of the API I want to use, right? So even before I write the code, I write the code like it exists. So wouldn't it be nice if we had this element? This can be whatever we want. So maybe you can create any action you want, or event that is. So maybe we want a finished event, so we know when the animation is finished. So now we can pass this callback. We can say console log finished, and that is really cool. So now let's use the action itself. So you can say use text or whatever else more creative name you can come up with. So now we can pass it some options. All right, so here is what I actually want. I actually not only just want to create an animation, I actually want to get a reference to the animation element itself. So how can we do that? Well, first we can maybe pass some options, right? So we can have options, and later it's going to be types, so you're going to get great auto completion, right? So this already looks nice to me, right? And how are we going to get a reference to the animation object inside? Well, we're going to pass a callback, which we're going to name action or whatever else you want. And now from here, we can just structure the animation. And now when we have this function, we're going to just pass it, and then it's going to run. So we can do whatever we want here. We can say animation stop, pause, or whatever. Now we have complete control over this. And this is a more advanced example, of course, but once you try it and understand it once, it's going to be really straightforward. So let's just create a function. I'm just going to name it text. and then we can pass the element, which is going to be HTML element. And again, now we can just structure these values. So we have options and action, and that's basically it. So first we want to remove the white space and split the letters. So that's really simple. So we can say const letters, we can say element inner text. So we can say trim, so remove any white space, and then we can split each character. So now we can loop over the letters, we can create the element we want. In this case, it's going to be a span, and that's basically it. And we also want to remove any content inside the element. So we can say empty. All right, so now we can just go over the letters. We can say letters for each letter, and now we can just say element and append it to the inner HTML. So now we're just constructing the string. We can say plus equals just so we add to it. Cool, so you can say span class letter like this. Let me just like that, and that's basically it. And now we can use template strings. You can say letter, and this class letter is coming from my styles app CSS. So where it is, class letter. So it just says display to inline block because span isn't blocked by default. Awesome, and now you just need to use the Motion 1 API, which looks very similar to the Web Animations API because it's actually based on it. How awesome is that, right? So now when we go here, we can say animate, and now we need to pass it the elements. So as you can see by the auto completion, in this case, this is going to be some weird DOM element, so we're just going to spread the children. So we're going to turn them into a regular array. So now we can spread, we can say element, and what is on the element? Well, children. We don't really have to think about anything else, right? So now we get all of these letters. Awesome. So now we pass it keyframe, so this is just like the Web Animations API. Let's set the color to orange red. And then we can animate the keyframes. We can say Y to be 0, 30, and then minus 60, 0. And I also want the letters to rotate. So each letter is going to rotate one turn or 360 degrees. Awesome, and now we can pass it some options. So you can say duration, so we can pass it 1 second. And then we can also give it a delay, which is really awesome and easy to do with Motion 1. So you can import stagger. You just scroll, so it imported stagger. So now to the stagger, you can pass 0.1, and that's basically it. And now we can also spread our options, so we can pass anything we want here. Even though duration is here specified, if you pass duration 2, it's going to beat it. Alright, so let's save everything and things should work. How beautiful is this one, right? So now you can also pass it. For example, this was duration 2, but maybe that's too slow. Let's say 1. And we have repeat also, which we can pass. We can set it to infinity. And now we can look at our happy little letters. All right, let me just remove this. And now let's work on our callback. So again, after this animation, we can just invoke the callback, and that's basically it. And now to get a reference to the animation controls, let me just show you I'm not making this up, right? So if you go to Motion 1, if you go to their docs, quick start, they have controls. And that's basically, it tells you, okay, you get back this object from the animation. Now you get finish. Now you get current time. Now you get duration, playback rate, and etc. It's really awesome, right? All right, so let's get the control. So we can say animation, just like that. And now we can invoke our action, which we pass, right? So here is our callback, right? Callbacks are really amazing. So here is our action, and now we can just invoke it. We can say action, and we can pass animation or just structure it like this. And now we have access to it. So now if I save, we're going to invoke stop on the animation, right? So if I save and go here, as you can see, nothing is going on because we stopped the animation. And that's basically it. So now let's also add this finished event, and we can say this by animation. Since we have great type completion, we can see, okay, what does it have? It has finished, which is a promise. We can say then, give it a callback also. And now we can say element, dispatch event, new custom event, and you can name this whatever you want. And awesome, let me just comment this out so we can see what's going on. As you can see, we already use on finish, so we can say console of finish. Let me save everything. And now open the developer tools. And you can see, if you refresh again, the animation is going to run and finish should be output in the console. And that's it. So now you can do anything you want. All right, so awesome. So now we have access to the instance itself or the animation, right? So that's basically what I wanted to show you in this more advanced example. So here's what we can do. So to not confuse, this is our action. I'm going outside the action. So I'm going to create the controls or the animation, right? And then I'm also going to create time so we can control it. And then we can make a scrubber or whatever else you want. And here we can use our reactive declarations. We can say, hey, if controls exist, then for the controls, we can say current time. equals time. And again, how do you know this type? Well, just alt click or whatever to the animation, and you can actually go to these types here. So you can find all of these types here. As you can see here, the options, animation options. Okay, then you're like, let me try import this and do the types work like I expect. Okay, I can use this type even if it wasn't maybe intended to be used like this, right? But these types are exported for a reason, right? So that's basically it. So now we can go here. Let me just see controls. So now we can type it as animation controls. As you can see, it should be imported, type animation controls from motion, and that's basically it. So inside of here, we can stop the animation, so you don't want the animation to play, and now we can reassign the controls to the animation reference, and that's basically it. So now here we can say this if block, if the controls exist, in which case we can create a range input like this. Let me just remove everything. We can say range, and I'm just going to do it like this. So now we can bind the value to time, so whenever this changes, it's going to update the time in our animation. We can set a min value, which should be 0. The max is going to be controls duration. Again, we learned this from the docs that we can use this. And this is going to be weird because there's something maybe wrong with the API, but they don't really account the stagger in the duration. So you're going to see it's not going to end, but I'm going to show you that before I add this step. And then you can just set the step for the range. So I'll have to use a low number, so we can do it like this. So again, we assign this to the controls, and now whenever controls or the time gets updated, we're going to reassign it to controls current time, which we have a reference through our callback here. And now when we go here, let me just refresh. So now we see we stop the animation, but now we can scrub through it because we have a reference to the element. How beautiful is this reference? But as you can see here, it's not really right because it didn't account for the stagger. So I just add a random number here where the duration is. Maybe you can chuck this into a variable. I'm just going to say 0.6 or 0.4, whatever. Okay, so let me save this, and now you can see now it matches closer to what we have. And that's basically it. Alright, so let's quickly add the types, and again, if you don't care about TypeScript, you can skip this part, but for you to care about types, here's how we do it. Again, practice makes perfect, right? So we can say type options. You can just split this thing apart however you want, make it more readable. It's about you, not about appeasing TypeScript or anyone else, right? We can say animation options because this is the options object, right? And now we have this callback, which is an action. So now this is a function which returns nothing. So it's like void like this, but we have some things inside of here, right? We have animation, which you can type like this. So you have to say animation again, and this is the part where you give it a type. And this is again, animation controls. And that's basically it. So now we have this type. So now we can create again this interface attributes. Now we can say on finished. And now again, this is an event, custom event, turns nothing. Awesome, and again, let's just make this type so it's more readable. We can say text action. We're going to import action from Svelte Action. So first is going to be HTML element, that's basically it. And now again, we have options, so we pass the options, and then we can also pass the attributes. That's basically it. So let's return, or let's turn this function into an arrow function. So we can say const text. Let's do equals, and now we just this. So we can say arrow function, and I'll just give it a type. Simple as that. Text action. Boom. So now you see everything is typed: options, animation options, actions. It's properly typed as it should. Let's just save everything. Let's look if everything looks okay. As you can see, it's not that intimidating. Of course, try these examples out yourself, play around, and you're going to see it works great. So let me just see if everything works. And how beautiful is this, friends, right? Alright, friends, so let's look at this forms example. And this is going to be a bit cheeky if you're already familiar with SvelteKit. Well, basically, we have this form here, and I'm just going to enter something. Banana as always. Let me just submit, and we should see it's going to get logged here on the server. As you can see, here is a beautiful banana. And let me just close this terminal. So how does this work? Well, basically, this is just a form. It's just HTML, right? This is an actual server because we're using SvelteKit, right? And basically, we're using SvelteKit form actions, not to be confused with Svelte Actions. I know it's a confusing name, but this video is action-packed. What can I say? Okay, so we're going to get the value. This is really important. Well, you have to understand how forms work. We have this name value here, and that's how we can get the value on the server. So we can say await request form data. We get the data, And now we can say value data.getValue, and now you can do whatever you want, authenticate someone and etc. And we return this JSON success true, and that's basically it. But as you can see, the user experience is not that great. And why is that? Well, pay attention to the page here when I submit this. So the entire page is going to reload because this is the standard behavior how HTML forms work. So wouldn't it be nice that we progressively enhance this so we can use JavaScript when JavaScript is available, so we get a nice user experience and etc. And of course we can do that. We can go here and we can do something like on this form on submit, and we can even use Svelte handy prevent default, and now we can say handle submit and we can do our JavaScript. But this is great, but what can we do which is more reusable? Well, of course we can use a Svelte action. And let me also show you what I want. Again, let's dream this API up together. And here we have method post. Let me just do it like this. So here's what I'm going to use. And this is a bit cheeky if you're already familiar with SvelteKit, where I'm going with this. So how about we have this use enhance action, which we can pass a callback, right? Again, we learned how awesome callbacks are. So now for this callback, let's say that we want to get back the form element and the form data. Well, we can do that, no problem. And we can also console log them out. So you can say form element and form data. So we're going to see quickly where I'm going with this. So let's create this action. This is going to be function enhance. Again, this is going to be a form element. You can name this whatever you want. I'm going to name it form element. So let's give it a type HTML form element. And then this is going to be a submit callback or whatever, which we pass, right? And we're going to type that later, which is not important right now. And now we can say async function handle submit. So good old regular JavaScript, right? Now this is an event, which is going to be a submit event. And that's basically it. So now let's add an event listener for the form itself. Add event listener. What do we want to listen to? Submit, of course. And we can say handle submit. And let's also do a cleanup. So we can say return. Just copy this over. And instead of add event listener, remove event listener. And that's basically it. Okay, so now we maybe have an idea where I'm going with this. So now here for the event itself, we can prevent default page refresh, right? So that's the default form behavior. And now we can get the form data right now. We can say const data. We can say new form data. And we can pass it the form element. So now from the form element, we can get this data. So let me show you that. Let me go here. I'm going to open the console. Type in banana. You can see we get the form data. All right, so now we can get data from this form. So again, this is like the same thing as this form data from the request. We just get it from the request in this case. So now let's make a request to the endpoint, and we're making a request to this endpoint, right? So we're going to get back this JSON success true and whatever else, right? And now we can say response, and we can use the good old fetch. Cool, so how do we know the URL? Well, on the form action, you can get all of this data. So the form action has the action, it has the method, it has everything. So the form already knows what URL it needs to submit to. And now let's also pass some options. Again, what is the method? You can say post, but we already have this information from the form. We can say form element method. That's it. And for the body, we just send the form data. And that's how beautiful that is. All right, so now we can get the response. We can say console log await. You can say response text like this. Let's just see what we get. Test. So now we get this text. Maybe we want to return JSON. Let's return JSON. Awesome. So now you can do whatever you want on the client, right? So let's invoke our callback right now. So I'm going to go here and we can just say submit. Now let's invoke it. And now for submit for the form element, we're going to actually return form element. For the form element, we can pass the form element itself, right? And for the form data, we can pass data. You can pass whatever you want this way. So we're going to get this available through our action, right? How beautiful is this? So now again, we're going to invoke handle submit. Then we're going to do whatever you want to do here. Is not important. I just want to show you this as an example. And now we can invoke this callback. So now when we console log it out here, form element and form data, we should see something familiar. Let me just clear everything. So now we're using JavaScript. So again, if you didn't pay attention, this page isn't going to refresh. We're just going to use JavaScript when JavaScript is available on the page. Otherwise, we're just going to use the SvelteKit server, right? So as you can see, we get type success and we get the form itself. So this is our console log. This is the form itself. So this is the form element which we return, and this is the form data. So now even on the client, we can do whatever we want. And we can of course type this and etc., but there's no point. And why that is, and some of you who are observant, they already know that SvelteKit has this Svelte action already built in. That's right. Svelte actions are so powerful that when the team from the SvelteKit were considering, hey, should we make a form component for progressive enhancement? They were like, hey, we already have Svelte actions. Let's just make a Svelte action. And what if I told you the same code here, if we delete it, is going to work? Of course, we need to import enhance. So we can go enhance here, import it from app forms. Let's save this. Clear everything, no tricks. Let's say test. Boom, you get the same thing. How beautiful is this, friends? So this is how you learn about these things. I didn't invent all of this, right? Just dive into the source code. You can look, this is like, it looks a bit intimidating, right? But you can see this is the exact same thing. So this is export function enhance. It accepts an element. Here it has this callback, which they call submit. So here is just some junk code. Like if you remove this, it wouldn't matter. Here we have the same thing we've done. You can see handle submit. You can see event prevent default. Same thing we've done. Form data, new form data. How close this is, right? You don't even have to be a framework author. Like this is an action that you could have written yourself, right? Even before it was official in SvelteKit. You can see here they include some awesome things. So of course you should use their official action instead of doing whatever you were doing, right? And then they have here checks, try, again, the same thing, response, fetch, and etc. And then they evoke this callback. So this is how you learn about things. And how beautiful is this, friends, right? Alright, friends, so I really want you to understand the power of Svelte Actions. So let's look at some community examples here. Let's close this, and now let's open some examples. So first we're going to look at libraries and some utils. So let's open CodeMirror, NeoDrag, NeoConfetti, FlatPicker, and Maskify, which are all really awesome. So for example, if you're familiar with CodeMirror, which is just a code editor you can use in your project if you want. So here is how simple this library makes it to use CodeMirror. So you can just import CodeMirror from NeoCodeMirror and you can use it as an action. So you can pass it a value, language, or whatever option you want. So you can also get editor related data and of course read the documentation. So this is how simple it is to use CodeMirror. And then another awesome library, NeoDrag. So you get dragging for free. So you can just go to their documentation. So you can open this. You can see you can just start dragging. And let's look at how simple it is to use. You just install NeoDrag and then usage, boom, use draggable. That's it. Now you can pass it all of these options. And even if you don't write Svelte Actions yourself, take advantage of the already existing Svelte Actions in the community. Let's look at a confetti. Maybe you want to celebrate you learning Svelte Actions. Well, you can do with NeoConfetti. So you can open NeoConfetti. It's really awesome. So you can see here are the docs. You can just install it. It's a simple package, right? You can say use confetti. You can pass it the particle count, the force, or whatever else you want. All right, so let's look at another example. Here is a flat picker, date picker in Svelte. So here is a demo. I open the demo. So based on the action you pass in, you're going to get a different date picker. So maybe you want just a regular date. Well, you pass in use date picker. Maybe you want a month picker. You say use month picker. So let's see, date picker. Like this, month picker. You can pick a month. Maybe you want a date range. How crazy is this, right? So you can select a range. Maybe you want a month range picker. So you can go January, August. And that's how beautiful Svelte Actions are. Let's look at a Svelte Action wrapper for masking inputs. And basically masking inputs is just so that whatever input formatting the user enters is always consistent. So this is inspired by Alpine.js dynamic masks or Alpine.js masks. So let's open Alpine.js examples. So here's how you can use it. So for example, you can only input month, day, year. So whatever I input here is going to be the same format. So you can also do it like this. So you can input any random number, but if you start with 3-4, it's going to have a different formatting. So if this is something that you need, then have a look at this awesome package, Svelte Maskify. Here's how you can use it. You just say input, use Maskify, and you give it the format you want. Awesome. So let's look at some utils library. And the beautiful thing about these things is that you don't need to install directly these packages. You can just copy paste the code or you can look at them to learn. So let's look at Svelte Actions, Svelte UX, and Svelte Put. So here is this repo, which has a couple of actions. You can click outside, which you already implemented, long press, panable, lazy load, and etc. Then you have this awesome library. You have Svelte UX. And this is basically, let me just see. So you can go to here, and they also have a bunch of useful actions. So if you scroll to the bottom, they have stores, actions, let's see, input, layout, mouse. This looks cool. Oh, so you can, okay, so long press, movable, so you can click and hold, and now success, repeat to hide, awesome. Now it also gives you a movable. You can see a lot of these things are similar, but you can learn a lot how this works. And again, this is just regular JavaScript. Just by learning this, you don't have brain rot from learning something you're never going to use. You can just learn literally how to make drag and drop in JavaScript, and the UX is 10 times better because you're using Svelte, right? You get all of the niceties, custom events, and etc. You can see mouse observer. So this is the resize observer, I think. And yeah, you can use resize, and then when an element resizes, you can do whatever you want. Which also reminds me of this library. So Svelte put is really awesome. So let's go to Svelte put. You can read the docs, and this has a bunch of useful utilities in Svelte. So you can see avatar, click outside, copy, drag, scroll, intersect. So I think this is the intersection observer, right? So let's look at this. Yeah, and everyone knows how a pain in the ass the intersection observer API is. So again, you don't have to think about this ever again. You just use it like this. Use intersect. On intersect, do whatever you want, right? Boom, how simple that is. I hope you appreciate and learn how powerful Svelte actions are, so don't sleep on them. So that's basically it. If you like what you're seeing, don't forget to like and subscribe, and you can also support me by becoming a patron. Thank you for watching, and catch you in the next one. Peace!